Welcome back YouTube. Today we're going to continue with the workout example theme, and we're going to go through another example of an upper body workout, but this time with a chest focus. Again, this is just going to be an example, okay? It doesn't mean your workout has to look like this. It's just to give you ideas of what you could potentially include, how to maybe order your exercises, and I'm also, as usual, going to go through the visual and verbal cues of the exercises that I'm including, so that way you can also get some information, some guidance on how to perform the exercises we're going to talk about. Don't forget, if you do enjoy the video, please do drop a like. If you've got any questions or you want to see any exercises or workouts in particular, do drop them in the comments. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe. So like the previous workout, this is going to be a full upper body session. Majority of it is going to be chest focus, so we're going to have a slight little bit of back focus in there. This is just how I like to program upper body sessions. Again, depending on the individual, but it's a good way of making sure you can train each muscle group 2 to 3 times a week. Again, we're only going to talk through like 4 exercises here. This is just going to be sort of like the bulk of the workout in itself. If you want to add more to these workouts, by all means feel free. If you want to add on muscle groups, say arms, shoulders, even legs if you want, by all means go for it. This is just a short example of a potential workout for your body, chest focus, what it might look like. So if you've watched my other workouts, you'll know that I typically like to pick exercises at the start of the workout that are 1, going to potentially be the most fatiguing, because you want to do them when you're freshest, and 2, require you to create more stability, because again, you want to choose exercises that require you to create more stability when you're freshest and when you're not fatigued. So we're going to start with a dumbbell chest press, which does require you to create a little bit of stability first in the workout. Now, the dumbbell chest press is actually quite a relatively straightforward movement in terms of what we want to be thinking about while we're going through it. And a lot of it requires us to have good thoracic extension and to have good mobility and be able to move these shoulders. And that's because throughout the movement, we want to be able to make sure that we can lock these shoulders back and down towards the hips, okay? Because as we press, we want this position to be solid throughout, right? So when you get into the bench, when you set yourself, drive these shoulders back and down to shoulders, okay? This is going to be locked in. You're actually, when we train a lot of chest and a lot of pressing, you're actually going to feel your mid-back doing a lot of work as well, because that's going to be helping stabilize these shoulders as we're pressing, okay? So you want to lock these shoulders back and down, you want to keep that position throughout, chest slightly risen, okay? As you press, think about pressing your biceps into your chest. So biceps going into your chest or biceps together. Don't think about driving the weight up. Think about pushing yourself into the bench and driving the biceps into the chest, okay? We don't want to see too much of these shoulders coming forward as we get to the top, because ideally we want to keep everything locked in and nice and stable. In terms of coming down to a depth, come down to a depth that's comfortable, that you can control that weight in, okay? We don't want to be coming too far down where we lose tension on the chest or we lose the ability to control that weight. Okay? As we're pressing through the movement, keep the wrist in line with the elbow. We don't want the elbow coming out wide past the point of the elbow. It can come in slightly, but don't let it go wide. Think at least in line with that elbow as we press. At the bottom, make sure we're not rounding at the shoulders. Make sure we can keep these shoulders pinned back and down, chest up. Again, if you're getting to a point where the shoulders want to round, then you're probably coming a little bit too far, or you need to regress the movement and practice being able to keep that position, that thoracic extension, with the shoulders, with the arms further back. Keep your feet planted on the floor. Don't do any silly movements with your legs where you're bringing them up onto the bench. Keep them planted on the floor. Actually drive your feet into the floor to help create more stability and produce more force. Now the next movement we're going to do is we're going to go into a cable fly movement, okay? Again, still requiring us to create a little bit of stability because we're not completely locked into a machine, yet we still do have back support, which is going to help for stability a lot, and we're in a more seated position, which for a lot of people is going to help create that stability, and especially focus on that thoracic extension with the shoulders. Now when you're setting the height of that seat, you want to make sure that cable is going to be in line with shoulder or slightly above, so as you're driving in, it's coming down ever so slightly. You want to think about on a gradual decline as you're driving in, okay? Similarly with the chest press, you want to make sure that in the bottom position you do have the shoulders pinned back and down, chest slightly risen. Okay, as you drive, you're going to think about again driving yourself in to the back seat, into the pad, and again you're going to think biceps into chest. Have a slight bend in the elbow, but think biceps into chest. Don't focus too much on the hands coming together. We want to think biceps into chest. On the flies, as you get to the end, if you do get a little round of the shoulders, that's not going to be an issue at all. So you can let the shoulders round slightly, but as we come back and we're thinking hands away, do return to that position where you're locking those shoulders back and down and driving into the bench again, okay, to create that stability as we're coming back. So you're thinking biceps in, and then you're thinking hands out on the way back. Again, feet planted on the floor, nothing crazy, not bringing them up. So keep them planted on the floor, you can drive into the floor. Again, it's giving you that more stability and force production. Now we're going to throw in a little bit back here. Again, just if you know we want to give that chest maybe potentially a little bit of a break before we go into another movement. Now when we're training back, again, you know, if you're doing a split like this where you're trying to train chest and back 2-3 times a week, the choice of movement that you pick, you know, is going to be dependent on what you've chosen in the other sessions, okay? If you really want to try and fry your back as much as you can on the chest day, you could potentially include a movement that is meant to target the mid-back, because like I've spoken about before, when we're doing a lot of pressing, that mid-back's going to be working anyway. So if you really do want to try and fry that mid-back, you can put an exercise for back and for that mid-back within a chest session. For example, like this cable row, okay? Now yes, with this cable row being seated, not having a chest support, is going to require a little bit more stability. However, with the chest movements that we've had already, there hasn't really been a lot of requirement for stability, especially for the lower back and hips. So we're probably going to be fine with a movement like this. When you're setting this movement up, you can add D handles to a bar similar to this, so sort of like a neutral bar, because that will allow rotations of the wrist, which might help, well, would help wrists and elbow joints if you've got the ability to do that, okay? And what we want to focus on as we're pulling in here is we want to focus on pulling from the elbows, and we want to focus on trying to pull towards that mid-back, okay? As we pull in, think about pulling in line with the mid-back, okay? So we're not pulling in too low, we're not pulling in too high, just pull in line with that mid-back. And as you pull, again, think about retracting the shoulders, so the shoulders coming back and down as we're pulling in, okay? Drive the chest to the bar, so we're getting a squeeze of that mid-back, thinking holding the pencil in between the shoulder blades, okay? Keep that tension and keep that those shoulders set on the way back, but when you do get to the bottom, do allow the shoulders to come forward a little bit, because we do want to get a little bit of a stretch before we retract and pull again. And then lastly, going back to chest, okay? Now, I'm not a huge fan of having a lot of pressing within one session. So when I do add another pressing movement in, I do tend to use something like a machine where we're a little bit more locked in and we don't have to create as much stability, okay? So if it was me personally, I wouldn't put another pressing movement in where you're having to create a lot of stability, like dumbbells or barbells. I would use something like a machine, which I have in this video, or something like a Smith press machine where, again, you don't have to create as much stability and the machine's going to help a little bit, okay? The cues are very much similar for a dumbbell chest press, okay? So again, when we're going through this machine movement, as we're coming down and as we're pressing, we want to think about the shoulders being locked back and down, driving ourselves into the bench as we press and driving the shoulders, driving the biceps into the chest, okay? So again, we're keeping these shoulders nice and locked and we're driving biceps into chest. Again, we don't want too much movement forward at the top. We want to keep everything relatively strict and locked in. And again, as we get to the bottom, we'll drop into a comfortable depth that we can keep tension on the chest and we're not getting any rounding of the shoulders. Okay, we want to be able to keep this position without rounding the shoulders. When you're setting the height of the seats, keep it simple. Make sure the handles are going to be in line with your chest. Make sure that the elbow and the wrist can be in line and we're not having to, drop our elbow or raise our elbow. So there you have it, nice straightforward, an upper body workout example with a chest focus. Again, feel free, to add more chest movements in if you want, but again, I'd be careful of how much pressing we're doing in one movement, in one session. Again, feel free to add a little bit more back if you want. Feel free to add on sets for different muscle parts, whether that's arms, shoulders, again, whatever you like. This is just the bulk of a session of what you could potentially look like, and again, to walk you through sort of thought process behind exercise order, selection, and then the visual verbal cues of the exercises involved. Again, if you did enjoy the video and found it helpful, please do drop a like. If you've got any questions or you want to see any particular exercises or workouts, drop them in the comments, and if you haven't already, please do subscribe. Catch you later.